Welcome to September 1949. It's 13 years before the Cuban Missile Crisis, but it is what will allow those 13 days to occur. Like the infamous missiles in Cuba, the Soviet Union's first atomic weapon was not announced by the Soviets. It was detected by American reconnaissance planes, and after weeks of confirmation, disbelief, and private psychological grapple, announced publicly by the US president. What did President Truman say, and how did he react, the weight of an atomic world on his shoulders again during these dark days and weeks? It's the start of September 1949. 10 years earlier, the same month, World War II began. 10 years later, it is the month when the Cold War is rubber-stamped by atomic parity. 4 years earlier, in secret, the United States had successfully tested the world's first atomic weapon, and President Truman, who had only learned of the Trinity Project months earlier with the death of President Roosevelt and approved of their use, resulting in their deployment over Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Louis Armstrong has just recorded Blueberry Hill and is featured on the cover of Time magazine, as he has just been crowned King of the Zulu Mardi Gras crew. Orson Welles' The Lady from Shanghai plays in your local movie theatre. Turn on the radio and you can hear the latest sensation, Hank Williams, with My Bucket's Got a Hole in It and I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry. The world, scarred by the trauma of the Second World War and the fall of the Iron Curtain, still in shock, stands in awe of US military power. The US alone possesses what is now an ultimate deterrent. A bomb that ended the war in Japan with just 2 flights. Other nations are scrambling to catch up, but out of sight, out of mind. There is no sign that any nation is anywhere near to even designing their own Trinity test. Truman himself has been skeptical that other nations will acquire their own nuclear technology and thinks maybe it's likely that they never do. But all indications appear to be that if it eventually occurs, it'll be another president or even another generation's problem. Truman's advisors, including the head of the Trinity Project, Leslie Groves, estimate that a communist little boy is probably a decade away at the least, or even up to 20 years in the future. Truman may not smile at the thought, but he may not frown. It's a distant bridge that will be crossed whenever it is reached, and Truman may not be the man to do so. Like, share, and subscribe for more Cold War. September 3rd, it's a Saturday. Millions of Americans begin their weekend. The Dodgers will face the Giants, and the Yankees will travel to Washington to face the Nationals. As Truman goes for his regular morning walk, followed by his usual egg, toast, orange juice, and a shot of wild turkey, on September 3rd, a US weather reconnaissance plane glides through the icy skies just off Siberia and detects something that says the plane is near Nagasaki, Hiroshima, or the New Mexico desert. The wind is sprinkled with radioactive particles far beyond normal levels. But time ticks slowly. The Giants beat the Dodgers in their Saturday New York derby. The weekend passes and the week rolls around to Friday and another weekend. Friday, September 9th, and the intelligence detonation finally explodes on the Oval Office desk. CIA Director Admiral Roscoe Hillenkoetter finally briefs President Truman about the weather drone's revelation. This is the document he is given. Intelligence has suggested that the Soviet Union has been at least moving forward with its own atomic program, but nothing has suggested this kind of revelation. At this stage, it is possible that the discovery is proof of a volcanic eruption or natural event of some kind. More days of analysis are required, but the likelihood is that the Soviets or another nation have detonated something atomic, whether this be an atomic bomb, some kind of accident halfway through their program, or, more worryingly, some kind of entirely new weapon. Out of either caution or psychological denial, the wording of the most likely cause reads, "An atomic explosion on the continent of Asia." The president, although aware that there was a possibility that a Soviet bomb could occur during his presidency, is incredulous. He remains calm and quiet, but is stunned. At this time, he can't bring himself to believe it's possible. Most present do not, including Truman's second Secretary of Defense, Louis Johnson. But what they believe is irrelevant. They cannot confirm anything at this stage without more analysis, and until they know more, all they can do is speculate. The Soviet test was conducted on August 29th, cementing the month gloomily in atomic history. First lightning burned a blinding flash over the Kazakh steppe. The Americans, though, with burning dark humor, named it Joe 1 after Premier Stalin.
It will later be revealed that it is almost an exact copy of the Fat Man design, made possible in large part by blueprints and information leaked by former Trinity scientist and communist sympathizer Klaus Fuchs. The documentary The Red Bomb is an excellent, excellent film on this story.
But back to our story. In the US, scientists continue to analyze the samples, and by mid-September they confirm that this is no accident. The nuclear material is only possible from fission, plutonium fission. This is the kiss of a manufactured atomic explosion, very similar to America's own Nagasaki design. More evidence is collected, and on September 20th, General Hoyt Vandenberg of the Air Force has it confirmed by independent laboratories. The products of the fission collected by the Air Force Office of Atomic Energy's Air Weather Service plane suggests a plutonium device went up in a 22 kiloton detonation in late August. Truman, Secretary of State Aitchison, and aide Stephen Early pore over the report. President Truman is still incredulous, but it is now undeniable. His advisors will later remark that he scoffs very disparagingly that, quote, those Asiatics couldn't build something like an atomic bomb. Hardly something for the presidential library. The president is a man of flaws and underestimations, but he is also a man of action and reality, and the reality is that it is he who is the President of the United States. The man who famously remarked that Moses would have gone nowhere if Egypt had had polling and he had taken heed of such things is a man who comes to the fore in such situations. Like it or not, whether it agrees with predictions or not, the Soviets have the bomb, and the president has to make yet another atomic decision. Does he become the man to declare publicly of not only the first 2 atomic explosions known to the public, discounting the Trinity test, but of the first 3?
But the president and his team are not the only ones who know, though. Hundreds of officials involved in the confirmation also know. The world, instead, is observing the devaluation of the British pound by a third, one of the major events of the post-war years, and an economic detonation in its own right. Truman says to his aide, George Ellesley, that he can't add a second shock in at the same time. But if he does nothing, the news will probably be leaked by an official. He nor his staff can understand why the Soviets haven't announced their bomb themselves a month after its success. If they eventually do, though, the president's advisors tell him that the Soviets will gain an upper hand in PR and are likely to spin it as a peaceful explosion, or in any way that can be done to undermine US credibility. His inner circle deliberates. Finally, on September 23rd, President Truman makes the announcement. Rather than a televised address, though, he decides to release a short statement and choose the wording from his first report. The word bomb appears nowhere in his written address, rather that of an atomic explosion. Let's read it. I believe the American people, to the fullest extent consistent with national security, are entitled to be informed of all developments in the field of atomic energy. That is my reason for making public the following information. We have evidence that within recent weeks an atomic explosion occurred in the U.S.S.R. Ever since atomic energy was first released by man, the eventual development of its new force by other nations was to be expected. This probability has always been taken into account by us. Nearly 4 years ago, I pointed out that scientific opinion appears to be practically unanimous that the essential theoretical knowledge upon which the discovery is based is already widely known. There is also substantial agreement that foreign research can become abreast of our present theoretical knowledge in time. And in the Free Nation Declaration of the President of the United States and the Prime Ministers of the United Kingdom and of Canada, dated November 15, 1945, it was emphasized that no single nation could in fact have a monopoly of atomic weapons. This recent development emphasizes once again, if indeed such emphasis were needed, the necessity for that truly effective and forcible international control of atomic energy, which this government and the large majority of the members of the United Nations support. Publicly, Truman words it as something that was inevitable, but the truth is, like the public reaction, privately, Truman is himself reeling. His public announcement notes the probability of atomic parity and that it, quote, was to be expected, but not that it had been expected imminently. Within months, Truman will approve the hydrogen bomb in response, and the Soviets, themselves shocked that their triumph is announced first by the US, respond with their own press release acknowledging their possession of atomic weapons. Stalin himself didn't wish to do a televised address either. For someone who didn't even know about the Manhattan Project for most of its duration, as it was so classified that even the vice president wasn't informed about its existence, Truman has gone on to be the man associated in the public mind with the atomic bomb. Even when the bomb is that of the Cold War enemy, he is the one who goes down in history with its announcement.